Hello everybody, this is X with DankMTG, here to go over a modern deck that is a great deck to not just get started with in modern, but Magic overall, with the added benefit of being very affordable. Nowadays, everything is getting more expensive, but Magic doesn't have to. This whole deck with Sideboard comes out to less than $50, that's less than the price of just one monkey. In fact, you may already have some of these cards, so it can cost even less than that. This is DMTG Burn. Yes, we are playing Burn, a variation of a classic of Magic. If you want to have another deck or get someone into playing Magic, this is a great starting point. Burn is an easy deck to understand, but like every deck, has a lot of finer points that will come along with playing the deck. For experienced players, you may already know or have already come across a Burn deck. For newer players or anyone wanting to learn, a Burn deck is a deck that uses direct damage spells and aggressive, cheap costing creatures to deal damage to your opponent to reduce your opponent's life from 20 to 0 as fast as possible. I understand $50 may still be pushing it for some people. However, if you can save at least $12 every week, in just 4 weeks you can buy this deck. This deck tech is going to be a little different, as we're going to start with the spells of the deck. Yes, our usual suspects are here, but we'll go through each card to get a better understanding of what each card does and what role it plays. We are playing the most iconic burn spell, Lightning Bolt. Bolt is the reason this and all burn decks exist. Being able to do 3 damage for just 1 mana is extremely efficient, whether you need to remove a creature, but most of the time we want to throw us upstairs at our opponent. When I say upstairs, I just mean we're targeting our opponent. Lightning Bolt is easily the greatest burn spell in all of Magic. Until we get better Lightning Bolt, Bolt is always going to be here to stay in any format it's able to be played in. As you'll see within the rest of the deck, almost all other burn spells are measured against this to be considered a good or decent burn spell. Like our next card here is Rift Bolt. This is a 1 turn behind Bolt because it has Suspend. Suspend means we exile this, and the next turn we get to cast it, and we get to point it either at a creature or our opponent, but you can guess where we're going to go with that. We do also have the option to hard cast this for 3 mana if we need to, so if Suspend may take too long, we can always just hard cast and get 3 damage in when we need to. Lava Spike is a direct burn spell to a player for 1 mana. With that, you can't really go wrong. I know we mentioned Bolt being the standard for a burn spell, and this may seem the opposite of that, but this next card we have is a set of Lava Dart. 1 damage may not seem appealing, but 1 damage can actually go pretty far, but we can get a lot out of this spell. The flashback of stacking a mountain may seem to do more harm than good, but when we get to our creatures and another spell layer, you'll see the real value of this card. We are playing 1 Skewer the Critics. This can be another burn spell, maybe even something like a Wizard's Lightning or a Gut Shot, as those don't rely on Spectacle. But we do want to play this card for its Spectacle cost, but like Rift Bolt, we do have the option to cast this for 3 mana. Sometimes you have to remove a creature, but you want to save your burn for going to your opponent directly. Luckily, Blaze does both of those. Even with no landfall, we can still remove a lot of creatures and still get damage in off this 1 spell, and we are playing 2 of those. The next set of spells are related to burn, but are more enablers as they allow our deck more gas and cards to keep going. Burn does burn the opponent's life, but it also burns out our hand. Being able to get more cards to play will win us the game. The first card that we're playing to enable us to do this is Light Up the Stage. Just like with Skewer the Critic, we want to play Light Up the Stage for its Spectacle cost, because 1 mana for 2 cards is pretty good. The next card, and this may have a lot of questioning to it, but hear me out, is a set of Flame of Keld. This is a finisher. Often we run out of cards out of our hand, so the first chapter doesn't really hurt us. Even then, we're fine discarding Lava Dart, and the next card we'll come to. Being able to draw 2 more cards next turn is amazing. And if we get to the next chapter, now all of our burn spells do an additional 2 damage. You can single-handedly win with just this card and lands. How many spells can do that in burn? As mentioned earlier, we do usually tend to run out of our hand. Keeping up with the late game, we can usually burn out. But we have our last non-creature spell in Risk Factor. 4 damage off 1 card isn't the best at 3 mana, but the reoccursion is what we're really after. If the opponent lets us draw 3 cards at the end of their turn, great. If they take 4, we're okay with that as well. But what would they decide next? Either way, we get a lot out of this card, and if we discard to Flame of Keld, we can jumpstart it back if need be. Burn spells are fun to play, but we do still play creatures to be a recursive source of damage. We are aggressive, so we play low-costing aggressive creatures. we play 4 Ghitu Lavarunners. Remember, we are on a budget here, but even then, this card has been performing great in this deck. It's rarely not a 2-2 with haste. Because of that, it's good early and can even get damage immediately in a clear board in the late game. We also play a set of Monastery Swiftspear. This card is insane and really scales damage throughout the game. Prowess might as well read. Your burn spells get an extra point of damage as long as Swiftspear can go unblocked. Let's not forget, we can also sling our spells after blockers have been declared and before damage is dealt to get more damage in. Finally, running out our creatures is another set and a budget all-star, and that is Viashino Pyromancer. Not that appealing. Enter the battlefield is what we really like because it does 2 damage to either a player or a planeswalker if we need it to, and it leaves us with a body. If we hit chapter 3 on Flame of Keld and cast this, its enter the battlefield would do 4 damage. We may be on a budget deck, but we do play a very complex mana base. Every red player's favorite, we play mountains. In fact, we only play mountains and we play 19 of them. There may be some of the cards you may think would be worth playing, such as fetch lands, rounding up ruins, or even Sunscorched Desert, but don't. Playing mountains is the most optimal way to play this deck. The life loss of lands could cost us a game, and the lack of red could block us out of our spells with Sunscorched, so let's not fall for those traps. Let's just stick with 19 mountains and call it goods. Going on to the sideboard, we are trying to reduce our opponent's life to 0. Because of that, our mortal enemy is Life Gain. Luckily, Life Gain isn't as common mainboard, but will most likely come out in later games. Skullcrack is our way to stop it while dealing 3 damage. Another interaction is if our opponent blocks with a creature that has protection from red, the damage prevention will no longer happen, meaning the blocking creature will take damage. It's great as a burn player when your opponent is trying to gain life to stay in the game, but instead they take 3 damage. Because we're still vulnerable to hand hate and removal, we have 3 Leyline of Combustion. This is a card that seems to have been designed just for burn decks. If your opponent wants to interact with you, let them. They'll just take a shock for each time they do it. We also play 2 Searing Bloods because sometimes we want to remove a creature and bolt our opponent. There is an argument for moving this to mainboard. 2 damage does go far, but 3 damage from Searing Blaze does go a bit farther. We play 3 Smash the Smithereens. This is a searing spell for artifacts, being unbiased with every artifact it can target and bolting our opponent. If your opponent plays Urza's Saga, this is an auto sight-in. Here are some other cards that aren't really burn specific, but they will help against decks that they are aimed for. We play 2 Tormod's Crypt. This is a hose any graveyard-based strategies and can be a free prowess trigger with our Swiftspears. We also play 2 Cleansing Wildfire. This was previously Molten Rain, but being able to cast this a whole turn sooner and replacing itself is what we want against big mana decks such as Amulet, Tron, and anything else playing Urza's Saga, which nowadays is a lot of decks in Modern. A lot of sideboards we suggest here are not end all and be all. Here are some more sideboard cards to consider, and they are still within budget, so you may want to consider picking 1 to 3 of each of these. Scope out your meta and see what you may need to adjust your sideboard. We have Dragon's Claw for mirror matches to help us go longer. We can gain life off their spells and our own spells. Reality Hemorrhage, since Sanctifier Invect, Core Firewalker, and Burnington Forge Tender are cards to exist to hose down our plans. This is a direct way to remove those cards, as Devoid means is not a red spell. Roiling Vortex does add a clock, though slow, it is a consistent source of damage and will punish our opponent wanting to get any free spells in. The prevention of life gain is a bonus for us. It is worth noting that this will hurt us for flashing back Lava Dart, but that's a race we're willing to win. Finally, another card to consider is Exquisite Firecraft. It is mostly for blue decks like Control and can have more reach to finish off the game or remove bigger creatures that Bolt can't. Let's assume you built this deck, you've had fun with it, but you want to take it a step further. Where do you go from here? Rather than buying another deck, let's upgrade the current one. Starting point I would recommend is to switch out your Ghitu Lawarunners for Goblin Guides. In fact, because Goblin Guide is a lot more affordable now than ever, you can consider just starting out with them and skipping Ghitu. But if you'd like to stick to a budget of less than $50, you can't go wrong spending 20 cents on Lawarunners. The next upgrade I would recommend, following upgrading Goblin Guide, I would recommend turning your Viashinos into Eidolon of the Great Revel. Having your opponent take damage to interact is exactly what Burn wants to be doing. Let's assume you want to go even further and dig deeper into Burn. The next step in terms of upgrading is more of a leap, and that's to go full Boros Burn to upgrade our land base. To do this, we are going to need about 6 to 10 of red fetch lands. They can be anything from Scalding Tarn to Bloodstained Mires. Because this is Modern, we play 2 Sacred Foundries to fix our mana. We also want to play a set of Sunbaked Canyons. They do fix our mana as well, and we can cash them in for draws in the late game. We also want to play 4 Plateaus. Inspiring Vantage, because it pretty much is Plateau in this deck. Because we are in Boros now, this means we can play a set of Boros Charm, every Burn player's favorite, and let's throw in a few Helixes while we're at it. And that is the deck. Burn is an established deck, played in almost every format. This deck is an example of being able to get more than what you pay for. You can play with this deck, win, and have fun for an amazing price. You can take your experience and winnings that you make with this deck and build from that. I hope you all like it and even got to take something with you. Are you planning on making this deck? Are you wanting to make it for someone else? Do you think there's any alternatives you would rather play in this deck instead? Let us know down below. Until next time, you know what we like to say, stay dank.